For the last 9 weeks, I've been attempting to eat and train like every Hashira from Demon Slayer. Not only am I making all the Taisho-inspired foods that are some of the Hashira's favorites, but I also have another challenge. I'm trying to just touch my toes by the end of all of this. And the reason for that is I turned 39 this year and I don't want to lose my flexibility, so I'm using Demon Slayer as my inspiration. So today, I'm going to be diving into the life of Gyu Tomioka, the water Hashira. I have a lot to do, so let's get started with some breakfast. And no, I am not going to run out of weapons before the end of this series. Soba noodles have been a staple in Japan for centuries, but by the time we reach the Taisho era when Demon Slayer takes place, soba shops were everywhere, especially in cities, and I think it has a lot to do with Western influence of importing flour. Soba making is actually fairly difficult because buckwheat itself doesn't have a tremendous amount of gluten. Making buckwheat noodles with 100% buckwheat is not an easy task. By the Taisho era, we're seeing more and more flour introduced into Japan, and more soba shops using blends of buckwheat and flour to make their noodles. That's why when we go to a grocery store today, you'll often see soba made with a mix. So you'll usually get a mix of buckwheat flour for the texture and flavor, but it might be held together with a traditional style wheat flour. This just makes it so much easier to mass produce, but it does take away from the authenticity of having 100% buckwheat noodles. Now what's interesting is one of Tomioka's favorite foods is actually daikon, which is similar to moichiro, the mist hashira, and maybe because it's water and mist, and daikon's filled with a lot of water, so they just kind of went with it, both. I don't know, I'm just trying to draw conclusions here. I'm gonna be using daikon on all of my dishes today, including the very interesting special dish at the end for dinner that I've never made before, and I don't think I've ever seen on a menu in Japan, but maybe it's gonna be delicious. I'm not quite sure. The reason I picked this dish for Tomioka is because of a really touching bonding moment between him and Tanjiro. Tanjiro was doing everything he could to get Tomioka to like him, and eventually invited him to a soba eating challenge. It was a really heartwarming scene, and it really did show that Tomioka does have a soft side. The soba I made in particular is cold soba or zaru soba. It's something I love eating in the summertime when I want to make noodles, but I don't want anything too hot. It's incredibly easy to make. You just need to boil the noodles, drain them, cool them, and serve them. And you can even prep them ahead of time, so they're great for meal prep. I like to serve this with grated and drained daikon. Draining the excess moisture out of the daikon does give it a very nice, snowy, flaky texture. But what this also does is it allows the suyu to get soaked up into the daikon when we go to dip this and eat this later. Suyu is just a simple blend of soy sauce, mirin, and dashi used for all kinds of dipping sauces, similar to like what you might have with tempura. Zaru soba is honestly one of my favorite foods, and I'm really glad we had this moment in Demon Hunter between Tomioka and Tanjiro. The last thing I need is some suyu for this. Now, you can make this at home, but I'm gonna leave an Amazon link below because I love this brand. It's delicious, it's concentrated. You can thin it out if you want to, or use it as a dip for tempura or noodles. It's fantastic. I found it interesting that Tomioka and Tanjiro bonded over a noodle eating competition. I thought that was really sweet. I think food really can bring people together, and if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. Now first, I'm gonna try a bite like this. I love cold soba. It's one of my favorite things. My mouth is watering. There's literally nothing to it. It's just the noodles and some daikon and green onion and sauce. Cheers. If you've never had it like this, you definitely should try it. But to me, the best way to eat this is by pouring the suyu on top of that daikon, because the daikon starts to absorb the suyu and it just gets punched with flavor. Now look at what my daikon looks like. That's why I like to dry it out. A lot of places won't go through the effort of drying it out, and I think it's worth it. We used to dry it out at a really high-end sushi bar I worked in to use it for other things, but then I started doing it for when I want to have noodles too, because then it just absorbs all that sauce. Cheers. Oh my God. It's salty, it's sweet. The noodles themselves have that beautiful buckwheat flavor that I love. I love buckwheat flour. I think it's underutilized and we should use it more and more because it's really good for you. But now with my relatively easy and healthy breakfast out of the way, I now have to go and try to touch my toes. But today's an upper body day, so this is just gonna be weird, isn't it, Gandalf? Today I'm actually focusing on upper body, but since starting this challenge, I'd like to make sure that I do warm up everything. So this way I can really focus on the challenge of touching my toes before the end of the series. And admittedly, I have already touched my toes during this challenge. That to me is incredibly exciting, but don't worry, I'm still gonna be giving away some movie tickets to anyone who signs up for the newsletter at the description below over at cookingwithchaos.gg. But with my upper body training and my workout out of the way, it's time to go have some lunch, because I'm hungry. Now this next dish is something I've had previously in the series when we did Uzui's diet and we made that big old sushi platter, but this is a very different reason to have this. I'm gonna be making tamago yaki for a very particular reason. Let me explain. There's a really powerful moment in the series where Tomioka is recovering after a tragic loss. His friend and fellow Demon Slayer Sabito had lost his life defending the mountain during their training. Despite Sabito being the strongest, he was the only one who didn't make it after this demon attack. It really did hit Tomioka hard, and I think anyone would have taken this information terribly. During Tomioka's recovery, we do see a plate of food at his bedside, a really humble meal laid out. Tamagoyaki, miso soup, white rice, and a bit of green tea. But there's this moment of quiet pain and fury, and Tomioka flings everything aside, overwhelmed with his grief. And that scene really stuck with me. So I thought, what better way to honor Sabito than by creating that meal with intention and some care? Tamagoyaki itself has roots in the Edo period, but it became more common in the Meiji and Taisho eras as eggs became more accessible. Miso soup, on the other hand, has been around for over 1,000 years and remained a staple even in the 20th century. To see tamagoyaki used as a medicinal or recovery food at this era really did show us how available eggs were becoming as a protein source. Delicious, gentle, and easy to eat. Together with steamed white rice, this trio forms a classic nourishing meal, one that carries weight not just historically but emotionally. It's a dish to reflect on loss, on friendship, and on carrying forward the memories of those who came before. What I absolutely love about tamagoyaki is how simple it is to make with a little bit of practice. I know folding the egg over a couple of times can be intimidating, but I promise you can do this. What's also great about it is that it's basically 4 to 5 condensed eggs into one giant egg that you can then slice and use for meal prep whenever you want or eat all at once. The miso soup is also incredibly simple. I'm using some leftover dashi I had, adding in a couple of tablespoons of white miso paste directly to the dashi, and once that's stirred together, I'm just chopping up a bit of tofu and taking my obligatory bite with a bit of salt because I absolutely love tofu. The miso soup then just gets plated up with a bit of the tofu, some seaweed chunks, a few green onions, and then I'm adding my miso soup directly on top of that. This is all you realistically need to make a really nice miso soup. Now the egg itself just comes right out of the pan after resting for a few minutes, and I'm just gonna cut this into a few slices. This slice was not good enough, so I'm just gonna eat it. We're just gonna ignore that slice. And I'm gonna be slicing my tamagoyaki into 4 equal pieces, removing this other piece that doesn't look good and placing the other nicer pieces onto a plate. The piece that doesn't look good is also going to be sacrificed to the mouth gods. Now I did mention I'm using daikon on every single dish, but in this case for the tamagoyaki, I'm going to grate this directly on top of the egg. What happens is you're going to have a daikon that adds a bit of spiciness to the egg. This is a perfect recovery meal. High protein, lots of salt, low fat, and it's incredibly heartwarming. If you've been on the channel long enough, you know how much I love eggs, and in particular, tamagoyaki. Why tamagoyaki? Because it's eggs in its best form, condensed and ready to eat. Admittedly, I did have one darker layer in the middle, which is something you don't want to see typically because that means you overcook that layer, but just do your best. I'm gonna dip this, oh, the suyu is literally everywhere now. I'm gonna dip this in the suyu, get a bite with the daikon. Cheers. It's so good with the daikon in its stinky form. I actually like the raw daikon unwashed on egg for this application because it does add a ton of flavor. But if you don't like the stinkiness of daikon, you should just wash it like I did for breakfast. Get some of this miso soup. Oh, it's so hot still. I should just make this way more often. Like, just have it ready in the morning every single day. And I would just have this for breakfast. So it's so easy to make. This was a pretty hard scene to watch in a lot of ways. Tomioka wasn't expecting to hear the news of his friend passing, especially because he was one of the strongest ones on the mountain. So I'm gonna enjoy this meal for him, but I still have one more session to do, and it's so hot outside and I'm extremely tired and everything is kind of feeling like it's coming to a head, and I'm kind of, it feels like I've been doing this for way longer than I have been. So I don't know what's gonna happen in the next couple of weeks, but we're gonna finish this. I'm gonna be honest, guys, I am incredibly tired today. And this week has been quite a lot for a lot of reasons that I'll maybe tell you guys in a future video, but I had no desire to do another hot, sunny park workout. I am touching grass. I decided to come out by the river today because it's just such a nice day and see maybe if I can get maybe a little bit of stretching or honestly just a little bit of chill time in before dinner because my mind is fried. I don't think it has a lot to do with this series. The series has been pretty fun. It's just been a lot of other things, and just being by the water is pretty calming. So I'm gonna enjoy this for a little bit, maybe get some breathing exercises in, and then we'll go back, make a very special dinner. Tomioka's favorite meal, his favorite meal, and this is actually from a side story. So a lot of you guys may have not even seen this. I'm pretty stoked for it. Sometimes you just need a little reset, even if it's in the middle of your day. Take a few minutes to yourself and just enjoy it. Relax. Don't push all the time. I have to tell myself that. I feel like this was good, so I'm gonna go make Gyu's favorite thing for dinner. Okay, let's go. Here we go. Oh man, see that feels pretty good. I feel like my hips are getting strong, and yeah, that was nice. Okay, let's go back up the mountain. Admittedly, it's been a crazy 9 weeks or so. I almost actually forgot to do Tomioka because he didn't consider himself a Hashira. I know he is. He's the water Hashira. I get it. But sometimes you just need to take a step back and zoom out a little bit into a dish we've never made before, and that is salmon daikon. Now, that sounds like it could go a million different ways, but salmon daikon is actually a soup. It reminds me of the same soup, the fish cake soup, that I had made for K-pop Demon Hunters. And let me explain where I got the idea for this soup. Now, what's interesting about this dish is it's not actually seen in any of the episodes of Demon Slayer or in the mainline manga. It was actually featured in a spin-off manga called Demon Slayer: The Stories of Water and Flame. This manga focused on stories of both Rengoku and Tomioka, giving us a glimpse into their personal lives. In one chapter, we see Tomioka get surprisingly excited about being served salmon daikon. And honestly, that caught me a little bit off guard because throughout the series, Tomioka rarely shows emotion, especially when it comes to food. But in that moment, he lights up. We can't see it because his back is turned, but we know he's excited. That was enough for me to say, okay, this is his comfort dish. This is something he truly loves. And surprisingly, this is also a dish I have never made before, which even makes it more meaningful to me. During the Taisho era, families often relied on preserved or salted salmon, especially in rural areas where fresh meat was expensive or hard to find. Combine that with daikon radish, which is pretty cheap and a really hearty winter vegetable, and you get a dish that's deeply frugal but packed with a ton of flavor and umami. Simmered gently in dashi broth, this soup is all about patience. It's a real cousin to oden, another simmered dish from the same era. I think the best part about this soup is that technically you can have the soup going all day and just drop the fish in when you're ready to eat because it only takes a couple of minutes to cook the salmon. Now this salmon only takes about 2 minutes to cook, and I'm going to tell you about Cooking with Chaos in way less time than that. Cooking with Chaos is my brand new infinite recipe card system that features 60 different recipe cards that you can mix and match to make brand new meals every single time. There's 20 different proteins, 20 different side cards, and 20 different sauces. That means you have infinite combinations of flavors. But don't take my word for it. Look what the community have already made with Cooking with Chaos. But if infinite recipes aren't enough for you, I've included a D20 mechanic so you can just roll for dinner and let the fate decide what you're making that night. Macronutrients, so this way if you care about meal prep, that's going to be included as well. And a go on an adventure mode. This way you can actually play with your food. Check out Cooking with Chaos at the link down below over at cookingwithchaos.gg or with the QR code on screen. Every purchase really does help the channel out directly because this is my product. This belongs to no one else. My wife and I are the only owners, and we've been working really hard to get this in your hands. So check out Cooking with Chaos at cookingwithchaos.gg at the link down below or the QR code on screen. Now I really do have to pull this salmon out because it's done. That's how fast it is. I absolutely love the speed at which you can make the fish here, and I love the versatility of the broth. Salmon daikon stays closer to home. It's something that would sit on the hearth all day, ready to warm you up between long, cold stretches of training. It's a dish of quiet resilience, and if that doesn't sound like you, I really don't know what does. This is what I'm having for dinner, salmon daikon soup. What I find really interesting about this dish is there aren't a lot of reasons why Tomioka would have enjoyed it other than maybe some memories from when he was younger, or maybe he had gone out and had this with someone he really cared about, but it's more or less just a really comforting dish, similar to something like oden. Unfortunately, it is currently 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so this is probably the worst food to have right now. It is so hot. The house is warm, I've been cooking. Cheers to you, Tomioka. I'm having soup in 100-degree weather. I know we're in the house right now, but it's still hot. Oh, I've said this before with foods like this. Hold on. It's one of those foods that even if you've never had it, taking a bite of it can feel comforting. Does that make sense? It's like having chicken and dumplings. It's like having a homemade mac and cheese. It's like, for me, it's having dolma, which my grandma used to make, or kumpas, which my grandma also used to make. Maybe for Tomioka, this is that warming, beautiful feeling that you have when you eat something that just makes you feel good. And remember when I said you don't want to cook the salmon too long? Look at the color of the salmon in the middle. It has this really, really beautiful, almost like medium well. You could probably even go less time, but the salmon is still very creamy. If you throw it in there when you start cooking the daikon, it's just gonna turn into sawdust. But with this, there's only 2 weeks to go until Demon Slayer releases, which is insane. Infinity Castle is almost here. And now I have to deal with this guy, the stone Hashira. This is mine, you can't have this. Make sure you get subscribed so you can see the next episode. My name is Chef PK, and remember, keep playing with your food. Not with the soup around. Don't swing weapons with hot soup.